listeners, don't worry about it. Yeah, we already started recording, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, that should be it. Is that, yeah?
It's working.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much for your invitation. I'm happy to be given the possibility to talk about this EMQAL project of ours. First of all, I know you call this Didactic Fridays. Okay, we deal with didactics here as well, but I'm in no means an expert on didactics, and this isn't anything revolutionary that I'm going to present either. It's just my thoughts and my experience on what it is like to run and lead a multicultural joint international master's program, as it says here, because I think it's a bit different from dealing with our regular university students. I know some of you, at least two of you from the names I saw in the list here, but the rest of you are unknown to me, so I don't know how much you know about Erasmus Mundus projects. So I just have one slide about that. Basically, it is an international consortium consisting of several universities from the European Economic Area, that is the EU, plus some other countries like Norway, where we develop a joint program, joint master's program, to educate people from all over the world. And there are requirements to mobility involved. So students need to go to at least 2 countries apart from their home country to participate in this. And there's also supposed to be a lot of teacher or professor mobility involved as well. So those of us who teach in this system, we travel to other universities to teach. So I've been many, many times to Gdansk during the years to teach. We also regularly invite people from outside of the consortium to come and give lectures to our students. And all of this is funded by the European Union, by the EACEA. So our consortium consists of 5 universities from 4 countries. I'm from the University of Bergen, where I'm a professor of chemometrics, multivariate data analysis. So I'm coordinating EMQAL, and also Gdansk University of Technology is one member. University of Barcelona, of Cadiz, both in Spain, and then University of the Algarve in the south of Portugal. So for us from Bergen and Gdansk, it's quite nice that we have 3 South European universities to travel to during winter time to give our classes. That's a bonus, leaving Bergen and the snow behind to go to the south. EMQAL has been around for quite some time. The original application was submitted, I think, in 2005. We didn't get funding then. We didn't get funding in 2006. But in 2007, we got funding for the very first time. And at that time, it was coordinated by the University of the Algarve. And it was a 1.5-year program, because at that time, Portuguese legislation did not allow for masters to last for more than 1.5 years. Then we got a renewal in 2013, this time with Barcelona coordinating, and we expanded to 2 full years. And we also included some partners, consortium full partners from Russia, China, and Brazil. And then we got refunded in 2019, this time with Bergen and myself as coordinators. And one of the things we did was that we kicked out all the non-European partners, because it was terrible trying to organize any kind of meeting when people are literally spread out all over the world. We're currently in our last intake of students. So that means that we do not have money for future intakes, but we recently submitted an application, and it is now coordinated by Gdansk, by Piotr Koniecka from Gdansk. So let's hope that we are successful. We will know more about this during the summer. We aim our studies towards people with a background in science, more particularly inside chemistry, biochemistry, and related fields. We do want them to have a decent background in analytical chemistry, and to be eligible, you need to have at least a bachelor's degree. So I want to tell you a little bit about our structure, because I think there are lots of different ways of organizing Erasmus Mundus programs in particular, and also joint international programs in general. We start with a year where all students arrive at the same university. We refer to this as the host university, to take classes for a full year. So last year, I think it was, the students went to Gdańsk to do their year of classes. This year, they're in Algarve, in Faro, in Portugal. Regardless of where they're going, the program is more or less the same every year. We start off with a 2-week, sorry about my phone, I need to just switch that off, at least the sound like this. We start off with a language course. It is in the European Union's interest, or they say that it is important that we try to learn, or teach rather, our students a little bit about European culture, and language is of course a very important part of the culture. So we start off with a 2 to 3 weeks language course, sort of a crash course in Portuguese or Polish or Norwegian or whatever, whichever country they're in, to begin with, before we start with the program proper. And we've organized our course into a lot of tiny modules, as we call them, each worth 2 credits, to ECTS, 2 credits. These are taught intensively during 1 week. And the reason why we've chosen to do it like this is that we have so many lecturers coming to the host university from the other universities in the consortium. And we can find time to travel and be there for 1 week to teach, but there's no possibility for us to teach courses that would last for weeks or even months. So this is really the only way of organizing this program, in our opinion. So we teach them stuff divided into 4 different disciplines: quality management, analytical methods, data analysis, and professional skills. So this means that our program is a multidisciplinary program, quite much so actually. But the majority, not the majority, but the biggest batch of modules taught are in the analytical methods part. And I think all of us involved in the management of EMQAL have our backgrounds from analytical chemistry. So, but quality management is a very important part of our program. I mean, the title of the program is Quality in Analytical Laboratories. So we aim this program towards people who are interested to be working in a laboratory or running a laboratory, but also being heavily involved with quality management. So we got lots of modules taught in quality management by people who are experts in this field. I think at least one of these, maybe 2 of these modules are taught by people from Gdańsk. Yeah. I don't want to read out loud all these titles. If you're interested in the slides afterwards, you can get them from us. That's not a problem. Yeah, so these are the modules taught in one of the editions in the EMQAL program in the quality management discipline. Analytical methods, the largest batch of samples, largest batch of modules, you see them listed here. Now, the students do not follow all these modules. There are more than 30 modules on offer, but they have to choose, for instance, from the analytical methods, 9 out of these modules. So there is some variation in the study plans of the individual students. All study plans need to be approved by the program management team to ensure that when they're finished, all students fulfill the learning outcomes of the program. So yeah, analytical methods, you see them here. Then we have data analysis, and it's just 6 modules. 3 of them are actually taught by me. I teach statistics, I teach experimental design and optimization, and I teach multivariate data analysis. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Portugal teaching multivariate data analysis. And then in this third round of financing from the European Union, we introduced a fourth discipline, which we called professional skills. So this is relatively new to us. We felt that we needed to give our students more than just hardcore analytical chemistry, data science, quality management. So these are kind of like softer modules, but in our mind, they're quite important. So we try to teach our students a little bit about what technical writing is and how this is different from regular written communication. We have something on IT tools. Typically, this is about programming. This year, they're taught R programming. We used to teach them MATLAB programming here in Bergen. Something about project management, job search strategies, and then entrepreneurship and leadership skills. These are not modules taught by people with a background in chemistry. These are taught by people from economics, psychologists, etc. And in our new application, we are interested in expanding this this discipline into more modules. We're going to have one on decision making, for instance. It was very well received by the Commission when we introduced this discipline to our curriculum. So I think that's one of the reasons I think why they favored our application for a third time and refinanced us, because it is in our mind this definitely would does increase the employability of our students, which is important for the European Union here. For the job search strategies, we have this lady from, well, she's originally from Barcelona, but she lives in Dubai, coming to teach about this, and she gets our students to put up profiles on LinkedIn. And I know that at least when she did this in Bergen, 2 of our students got job offers during that week of this module as a direct consequence of their LinkedIn profiles. So I think that's a very, very useful module for the students, and they're very well received by the students as well. So 1-year classes, but in the Erasmus Mundus program, there are requirements with regards to mobility. You have to go to at least 2 different European countries to do your classes. So at least 2 universities or at least 2 different countries. And you have to stay at least 6 months in 2 different places. You can even go outside of the consortium for up to 3 months and still receive funding. So we have sent people to the United States, to China, to Chile, to do parts of their research project with funding from us. So what do they do during this second year? Well, they do a research project. RMT is short for Research Master's Thesis Project. So they do a research project which is supposed to last for 9 months. And then the last 3 months, they go on an internship. This was also a novel invention for the third edition of EMQAL. We didn't have that prior to 2019. So basically, the students should undertake an internship at or in a laboratory or in a company which either is accredited or at the very least has a quality management system in place. So it's not supposed to be a research project. It's supposed to be more like getting a feel of what it would be like to be actually working in this field. So it can be quite challenging for us to find places for the students to do the internships, but so far this has been possible for us to do, and in almost all cases our students are extremely happy with this internship placement, and for the most part the companies, the laboratories are also very happy with our students. I can just say that last year, the last batch of students we had, I sent 7 students to a pharmaceutical, the largest pharmaceutical company in Norway. It's located in the eastern part of Norway. And they were there for 3 months. They had to relocate to Eastern Norway, but after they were finished, all 7 were offered positions in this company. 5 of them accepted. The two that declined already had job offers from other places. So I'm fully convinced that this internship thing is a very good thing in our program. If I compare this to our regular master's students here at the University of Bergen, they have no such offer. They do not go on an internship. They're stuck here at the university throughout their whole master's study. So I think this is a very good thing that we have. And then once these 12 months are up, it's examination day, and that means an oral examination after submission of their research thesis. And we try to follow the local rules as best we can when it comes to arranging these exams. So some people do their exams in Bergen, some in Gdańsk, some in Spain, some in Portugal. So when we evaluate the thesis, after the very first year, we discovered that there was a very, very heterogeneous way of evaluating the thesis. Some places had significantly worse grades than other places for the people doing their masters. So we decided that we need to try to synchronize the way we grade our students. So ever since the 2nd edition of EMQAL, we're now in the 14th edition. Ever since the 2nd edition, we've had members from one other partner university in each exam commission or jury or whatever you call it. So I've been many times to Gdańsk to be part of the juries there. And the experience is kind of interesting for me as a professor, because you do things in Poland very differently from what we do it in Norway when it comes to how we organize the master's exams. So, yeah. Well, that was a little bit about the way we organize things. Let's focus a bit on the students. In the edition, which I am coordinating, there are 4 different intakes. And in total, we were given funding from the EACEA for 83 studentships. In addition to this, we are also seeking self-financing students. These are not easy to come by because they have to pay tuition fees, and there's also no financial support from us to the self-financing students, whereas the students who apply successfully for a studentship receive 1,000 euros monthly throughout the 24 months. And they also receive travel support, annual travel support from between 1,000 and 3,000 euros annually. And there's also something which is called installation costs, which is a one-time payment of 1,000 euros. All of this is, of course, to try to ease the transition from their home countries to Europe. The vast majority of our students are from outside of Europe, and they would not be able to participate in EMQAL were it not for these financial supports. So these applicants, they apply online through a system here at the University of Bergen. They are evaluated in 5 different categories. And it is us, the selection committee from the program management team of EMQAL, who are doing the evaluations. So this is very different from a regular master's student applying to the University of Bergen. That is handled by somebody in the central administration, even at the national level. But here it is me, it is Piotr Koniecka from Gdańsk, and there are people from Barcelona and from Cadiz and from Faro who are actually evaluating each and every application. And we've divided the criteria. We set up 5 criteria which we evaluate, and each criterion is evaluated by one specific person. So we got one person looking at the academic background. Do you have do you really have a bachelor's degree? Do you maybe have a master's degree? Do you maybe have even a PhD? We have lots of applicants who have already done one master. We've even had applicants with a PhD. We actually 1 year had a student who was a professor in analytical chemistry in Mexico. And at that time, I think he was 55 years old. So the background is very diverse. We rank them with regards to the level of their background and also their grades and also the status of their home university. Lots of things to look into there. There's language skills. They should ideally have an internationally recognized certificate proving that they understand English. I will talk more about this later because this is kind of like a tricky topic. They write a motivational and personal statement saying, why are you applying for EMQAL? In some cases, people write very generic statements, so it's quite obvious that they apply to several programs at the same time using the same motivational and personal statement, and that is not a very good thing to do if you want to get funding from us. Once we even had a student whose personal statement was in full, and I quote, "I am excellent student," exclamation mark, and that was all. That's not the way it should be. It should demonstrate that you know what EMQAL is about and why we should pick you as a student. And then we evaluate your suitability of your background. Okay, so you have a master's, but is it in a relevant field? It's better if you have a background in chemistry and a background in biology. And it's better with a background in analytical chemistry because of the nature of our program than it is to have a background in, let's say, organic chemistry. We also look at stuff like, have you published any research papers? Have you done any courses that are relevant? Are you familiar with any ISO standards, etc., etc.? And then there's a reference check, and that is my role in the selection committee. I look at the references. So each student should have 2 references submitted. And the thing is that there's a lot of cheating going on with the references. People are submitting fake references. They are getting people like fellow students to recommend them, posing as professors, etc. So actually the most important job when dealing with the references is to evaluate the references, not looking at what the references say, but because they usually say that these are fantastic students who are destined for at least one Nobel Prize in the future. But we need to look at, are these people really the ones that they are claiming to be? So we add up a score here, and then we get a ranking, and then we send out offers. So how many applicants do we get? The first edition, which I was responsible for, had 167 applicants, which was decent, but you see that the number of applicants has increased substantially over the years, and we're now at close to 400. I was at the meeting in Paris 2 years ago, and with the number of applicants we had for the 12th edition, 267, we were already in the upper ranks of the number of applicants to the Erasmus Mundus Masters. So with 397, we are really, really well off in that respect. It is a dual-edged sword, this, because we do want a lot of good applicants, but the more applicants you have, the more time you need to spend evaluating them. So that's the downside. But of course, we're happy with students finding our program attractive. So we've asked them, why do you apply for EMQAL? And they say that, well, the content is important. I mean, we have a background, or the students say that they have a background in chemistry and they're interested in being laboratory managers. So this is highly relevant. The fact that we offer these scholarships is perhaps the most important thing. Without these, we couldn't get these people to come to Europe and do their classes here. They think that it should help their career opportunities, and we've done some analysis or some surveys among our alumni, which seems to indicate that this is absolutely true. They are getting better jobs after they're finished. The fact that it is an international master is attractive to many, and the EU is, or at least Europe, Norway isn't part of the EU, as you may know. No, Europe is a very attractive place to come to for most of these students. I think originally Erasmus Mundus programs were set up by the European Union to sort of help these third world countries to develop. And then was also set up to stop the brain drain from these countries to the United States, but let them come to Europe instead. The idea was, I think, originally that they should go back to their home country once they're finished and improve the situation there. That is not happening. At least in our program, the vast majority of our students, they try to stay in Europe. So during these 4 editions that we now have here, which I have coordinated, we've had 86 students from 31 nationalities. So when you go home today, you can take this slide with you, and then you can have a little quiz back home and see how many of these 31 flags you are able to identify. And you see also that the Polish flag is represented there because we have had a Polish student. Okay, where do our students come from? The largest group is from Asia, and Pakistan, the country with the most students from. There are limits as to how many people from a particular nation you can have in one edition, at least with funding from the EU. But Pakistan, Philippines, Bangladesh are the biggest countries in Asia. But you see that we've also some more obscure countries like Kyrgyzstan. At least that's a fairly obscure country for me. I had to look twice at the map to know where exactly is Kyrgyzstan. From Africa, we have 26 students, and Nigeria is the top nation with 8 students. Ethiopia, we've always had lots of students from Ethiopia, but also from Egypt and Ghana. And this thing at the bottom of this slide is a quote from one of our students from a survey we did, where this student claimed that Africans are very much in need of this type of education. And he is obviously from West Africa, from Nigeria or Ghana, I would guess, the guy who or lady who wrote this. He's touching upon something important here. He says the quota for West Africa could be increased. We have special studentships for certain regions of the world. West Africa is not one of them, but there are certain scholarships meant for certain regions of the world, in addition to the studentships that are open for everyone to apply for. But I won't go into detail there. From the Americas, we've had a lot of people from Brazil over the years, but you see also Colombians are there and a lot of people from the Central America as well. We've never had a student from Canada or the United States. Maybe that's not so surprising. Historically, we've had lots of students from Chile, and we've even sent students to Chile. But in this 4th edition of EMQAL, we haven't had anyone from Chile. Europe is, strangely enough, maybe the place where the fewest students are from. It is not very easy to get students from Europe to apply for this, and I don't really know why. Maybe they are more comfortable in applying to a regular master's program, which they are familiar with. That it seems more dangerous to undertake an international joint master's. We've had 4 people from Spain. Poland has had 1, Norway has had 1, and then we had 2 people from Bosnia. Bosnia, or the Balkans, is actually one of the regions for which we have specially designated studentships. So that's why we have 2 students from Bosnia. In the edition which I have coordinated, the EU rules were such that there was a fixed number of studentships available for people living in Europe. So we had 3 to 4 students from Europe every year, and we couldn't give out more studentships than that. But these studentships were not open only for people with a European passport. They were open for everyone who had lived and worked in or studied in Europe for at least 12 months during the last 5 years. So that means that the majority of students that are accepted in the European quota are actually from different countries or from countries outside of Europe. They're from Nigeria, they're from Brazil, they're from Uruguay, but they're regarded as European students when it comes to distributing the studentships. So maybe the more interesting part about this whole thing, what are the challenges with doing an Erasmus Mundus or a joint international masters? There's a lot of things going on that is, in my opinion, very different from what we experience when we try to teach our regular students. You got lots of stuff to do before the student even start arriving. You probably need to help them a lot with the visa and the resident permits, because in some embassies in some countries are very slow working. So there's probably going to be, if you want to undertake such a project like this, there's going to be a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails and letters to write. You probably should help them with housing. This is handled very differently in our universities in the consortium. Norway and Poland are the good guys here because we provide our students with a guaranteed housing. So that means that when they come to Bergen or when they come to Gdansk, they know that they have a place to stay. Of course, they have to pay for it, and it's student housing and it's not luxury, but they do have a place to stay, and it's arranged before they arrive. When people go to Barcelona, Cadiz, or Faro in Portugal, they're on their own. So typically, they are unable to get a place to stay before they arrive because they have to make arrangements in person after arrival. And in some cases, it's very difficult to get a regular rent contract unless you have a residence permit already, and you don't have that because that takes time to get. So they are sort of on the black market, living more or less as illegals because they don't have a legal rent contract. And this causes a lot of frustrations, probably the most important negative factor for the students going to Portugal and Spain. So Poland and Norway should be very proud of themselves for arranging things in advance for the international students arriving. And I think it's extremely strange and very sad that these other countries are not doing this. But that's nothing I can or we can do anything about. It's just the way it is. Okay, so then there are challenges once they have arrived. They are supposed to be here. They're supposed to do classes. They're supposed to do research projects. They come from far, far away. They're like 6,000 kilometers away from their homes. Sometimes they feel that they need to go back to their homelands. There's a sick father. There's a sick brother. There's maybe some marriage taking place. Lots of things happen which necessitates a trip to their back to their homeland. And this sometimes is in direct conflict with the requirements of our masters. So I will talk a bit more about that later. They have very different backgrounds. They have very different academic traditions in the countries they come from. And the way we do things in Norway or Poland is probably very different from the way things they are used to. And this causes some conflicts and is worth thinking about. We got language issues. I will talk more about all these later. There are health issues to think about. Religion and culture is very diverse among this group of students, and it's not without at least the possibility of a conflict due to this. Some students are very disappointed with the grades they receive. I've had students who broke down in tears twice in my office because they got a B on their masters and they felt that I was destroying their future. And that's a direct quote. Because they're used to a different grading system than what we are using. And then once they're finished, they want us to write these recommendation letters. And that doesn't sound like a challenge, does it? Well, when you have 24 students and each of them would like you to write an individual recommendation letter, maybe every week or so, then it becomes a problem. And what to do with those students who you don't really want to recommend to do a PhD? How do you break that news to people? Okay, a little bit more about each of these topics. Arrival and installation. Of course, this has nothing to do with didactics as such, I guess, because this isn't about teaching, but I think it's an extremely important part of trying to attract foreign students to our countries is to try to make them feel at home, because they are far away from home, they're far away from their family and friends, and we need to make sure that they thrive, that they feel that they are welcome, because otherwise they're not going to be able to do their best during their studies. So I'd like to say it again, we should continue to help them with housing, and we should continue the process of trying to teach them language, Polish when they come to Poland, Norwegian when they come here. They are very, very keen on learning the national language, and in some countries it's more or less necessary. Try going to Barcelona and living there without speaking Catalan, or that's very difficult because the level of English is not very good among the common man in Barcelona. So we need to try to teach them the local language. Here in Bergen, we also have an additional language courses available after this 2-week course that EMQAL offers. Regular classes worth 10 credits taught by the University of Bergen. And a lot of the students coming to Bergen do these classes. Yeah. This picture is taken from the language course we had in Bergen when they were here in 2020. That was in the midst of the pandemic. You can see that from their face masks. And it was not possible to meet inside, at least not in January 2020, where this picture is taken. So parts of the language classes were taught outdoors because there weren't restrictions outdoors. So this is from a city walk, which they did with the teachers of the language course. So our students are supposed to be here when we teach classes. We have mandatory classes. Every week they do at least one module which requires presence for 2.5 hours at least every single day. Now, what you do about students who just desperately need to go back home? We've had to actually sometimes make sure that these students were able to follow classes online. So classes were recorded and streamed so that they could follow the classes online. But it is a problem that people want to go back home outside of holidays. And it's one thing if your father is dying, I understand that you need to go, but sometimes people just disappear, maybe because they're homesick without even letting us know. So that is a tricky thing to think about. And I guess it also has to do with whether they feel welcome and whether they feel taken care of when they come. Yeah. We've had students. We had one student in Poland last in the 13th edition doing classes there, and she had her final classes before Christmas. I think it was on December 6th, something like that. And then she went back to the Philippines, and on the 23rd, I think, of December, she gave birth to a child. And then she was back in Poland in the 2nd week of January doing classes again, whilst the child was back with her mother, who's taking care of the child. So that is an example of things that will happen if you try to arrange these huge international programs, because there's so many different backgrounds and stories from these people. So yeah. Our students are, for the most part, older than the regular master student. We've had up to, I think, 55 years of age, and most of them are, let's say, in their 30s. So they're older than our regular students. And some of them are singles, but there are couples, there are married people, and there are married people with children. We even had some married people with dogs. I mentioned dogs particularly because it's not very easy to get a dog to travel from Uruguay to Norway and then to Barcelona and to find a place to stay which accepts dogs and everything. And yeah, so there are challenges involved with that. We have people straight out of a bachelor's. We have people who are already professors of analytical chemistry. They're all students. How do you design a course that is able to cater to such a diversity of needs? What about the backgrounds? Well, they're not all chemistry students. We've got lots of people with pharmaceutical background, a biochemistry background. We've had medical doctors here. The pie chart you see here shows for the edition which was hosted by Bergen in 2020. You see that chemistry is actually not even 50% of our students. Not even 50% of our students regard themselves as chemists when they arrive. They're into different fields. So all of the teachers, more or less, are with a background in chemistry. So we have a very diverse background of our students. And this also becomes important when we are offering research projects, because they would very much like to do a research project which is targeted or which is aimed at their background, but we're not always able to provide them with such, because we are from analytical chemistry departments. So our projects tend to be more related to analytical chemistry. And that is a problem. So on the one hand, we want many applicants, good applicants. So we open up for people from other branches of science and chemistry. But then the downside to that is that when they come, they may not be too happy with the research project that they get. So why not just narrow the field down and say that, well, you need a background in chemistry and that's all we want to accept? Well, if we do that, we get lots of complaints from students who are not being accepted as eligible students. We tried to do that. We got loads and loads of complaints saying that, yes, but I know that you are a chemistry program, but I can learn chemistry and I have some background in chemistry. So this is a very difficult situation. I would say that that is one of the major issues we have. People with an analytical chemistry background are trying to make a multidisciplinary program, and we have very diverse students, and it's not always possible to find a research project suitable for the students. When it comes to laboratory skills, they are very diverse as well. We've got people who are experts in the lab, and we've got people who's never set their feet in a lab anytime. From certain countries, or in certain countries, the lab equipments are very poor. I know for a fact that there are countries, or at least universities in countries, where the lab classes are all just theory because they do not have any equipment. So they have zero skills in the laboratory. That is a challenge as well. We do have some modules designed to help them improve their laboratory skills, but it's probably not enough. But we don't have time to do more. Sometimes when we, at least here in Bergen, get students to do a research project, we actually let them do sort of like a laboratory exam before we start doing the actual project, just to make sure which level they are at. So I would say that the heterogeneity of the student body is one of the major challenges when dealing with such an international program. Then we've got language. Okay, in theory, it's simple. you should have an internationally recognized certificate like TOEFL, IELTS, or something similar. You should have a level B2. So you should be able to read, write, listen, and talk decently. Most of our students do not have these. These are expensive. Most of our students are not from well-off families, so they don't necessarily have the money to try to do such a test, especially not when they're not guaranteed to get a place in our program. What do you do about these? Do you exclude them just because, I mean, if you have a Syrian applicant, up until recently at least, it wasn't possible to do any of these tests in Syria because of the war going on. Should you just exclude them then because they don't have a certificate? Or is there any other way you can try to make sure that they have the required skills? What about countries where English is an official language? You got countries like Nigeria or Ghana. Should we accept students from those countries regardless of their actual language skills just because English is an official language? What about Ethiopia? In Ethiopia, classes are taught in English from high school onwards. But experience has taught me that Ethiopians are not necessarily very good at English. And there's a difference between oral skills and writing skills and listening skills. All of these are important. All of these are measured using these internationally recognized certificates like the TOEFL. But in other tests, like now these days, you got the Duolingo test, which has come up recently. They do not measure all these skills that are necessary. But should we accept it, or should we decline students without such a background? What we've done lately is that we have produced our rankings, and anyone with a microscopic chance of obtaining a studentship without having an internationally recognized certificate is being interviewed by us. So we conduct interviews with a lot of students just to make sure that they are able to understand what we're saying, and that that they understand us and we understand them. So we've actually excluded people on the basis of such an interview. One year we even tried getting them to send us videos, but that turned out to be a disaster because the videos were too long and they were too big in file size, and they were just reading from a manuscript. So we had no idea whether they could actually understand and communicate in English. They're going to write a thesis. Are they able to write in decent English? Okay, they're not expert. They're not. It's not their mother tongue, but they should be able to write coherently in English. Not all of our students are that. What about students who it's very obvious that their language skills are not very good? And then they produce a thesis where parts of the theory is extremely well written. That's, of course, because they've been plagiarizing. They've been copying from sources without giving either proper reference or, yeah. So this is also a fairly common experience in my mind with these students. You need to inform them that copying is not acceptable. I don't know how you deal with this in Poland, no, but I know that here in Norway, all master theses, they run a plagiarism check on them. And if they find enough evidence of plagiarism, they're going to be expelled from the university for at least 1 year. And they're talking about extending that to 2 years. And I had a student last year who, he was very good. He was a good English speaker, but the introductory part of his thesis was extremely well written. So I just took the first few sentences and copied it, pasted it into a Google search, and I found that it was a word-by-word excerpt from a paper. So I just handed him back his draft of the thesis and said that if you submit this, they will catch you for plagiarism. So please rewrite everything you've done. And he did that, and he got a very good thesis in the end. But I think this is something that we really need to think about as well. Because in some of these countries, it is my experience that these things are not regarded as important. It's perfectly fine to do it like that. They don't understand that it is a problem. Health issues. We have a responsibility for these students of ours. They need to be insured because they're not covered by the National Health Service here in Norway. So because they are Erasmus Mundus students, we have to pay insurance for them. So that's around 1,100 euros per student. So it's around a little bit more than 500 euros per year, which we need to pay. But this health insurance, that's just valid in the place, in the countries where they study. So if they come to Norway and they want to go on a weekend trip to Gdansk, I mean, there's excellent flight connections between Bergen and Gdansk, but they're not covered by the insurance policy if they go on vacation to Poland. So this is something to think about as well when we have the students here, but they still go on holidays, but they don't have a valid health insurance, but at least they're informed about it. We have people with pre-existing ailments. Our insurance policy does not cover that. And you would think that when you send out the insurance information with a policy and everything, if you do have a pre-existing ailment, you would read that policy in detail and understand what it covers and what it doesn't cover. But that is not happening. We have currently a student in Portugal who has a serious medical condition necessitating bi-weekly visits to a doctor. This she has had for several years. The insurance company refuses to pay because this is a pre-existing ailment. The Portuguese health services says this is not their problem either. So how to deal with this situation? Mental issues are not covered by the regular insurance here either. There are limits for dental treatment. If one operation or treatment is more than 500 euros, you have to pay what's over 500 euros yourself. And at the very least, they're going to need some help in how to navigate the healthcare system when they're in a strange country. They're not used to how we're doing things here. We need to help them. I know we had a student in Gdansk doing his research project there who had some serious health issues, some undiagnosed issues with his brain. But he got help, but it is important that we are aware of this and have time and resources to deal with these issues. Then a minefield, religion and culture. So we invite 20-something students from all over the world to come to Europe, and that's not going to go down without any problems at all, that I can tell you. You got religious things. You got a bunch of Muslims, a bunch of Christians, some Hindus and some atheists. Do they get along? Sometimes, yeah, but not always. There are limits as to how many students you can have from the same nation at the same time. That's a very good thing, because if you have too many students from the same country, there's going to be some problems related to that. Language, we had an edition in Spain. There was a huge conflict between the Spanish-speaking people. I mean, there were lots of people from Latin America, because they spoke Spanish with the lecturers coming from Spain. And then you had a bunch of people speaking Arabic, and they spoke Arabic between themselves, but they were kind of envious towards the people speaking Spanish with the lecturers, and it was a very messy situation. So I think it's important that we try to keep English as our lingua franca. We should not promote the use of other languages, because it's bound to make conflicts and groups thinking because of this. Africans versus Latinos versus Europeans versus Asians. This is based on my experience here in Bergen. We had lots of group works going on, and in the beginning, people were allowed to make their own groups. And guess what happened? All people from West Africa joined forces in one group. All the Arab speakers was one group. This isn't good. We want people to interact. We want people to experience different cultures. So I had to inform all the lecturers that when it came to groups, they should not allow students to pick their own groups. So I offered to pick groups for the lecturers, and I did this randomly so that they would get different groups every time. I think this is a very important topic as well. And I was made aware of this by one of our students. There was this lady from Nigeria who came to me and said that she felt the problem that she was always stuck with the other guys from Ghana and Nigeria, because all the groups were always made up by people with the same background. Then you got religious holidays and customs. Okay, we got Christmas holiday, fine. What about the Muslims and their Ramadan? What about Muslims and their Eid holidays? We don't observe that. They have some things going on the Fridays. Well, we have exams on Fridays. How do you deal with that? What about people who insist that they need to do prayers 5 times daily? I've had people doing prayers in the back of the classroom during breaks. Okay, but still, it is a weird thing to look at for someone like me who's not familiar with that. So this is also something which is very different from what I'm used to with my regular students. Suddenly you're walking up a staircase, and at the bottom or down a staircase, and at the bottom of the staircase, behind the staircase, there are 2 ladies from Egypt doing their prayers. This has happened here. So we had to try to find some place for them to do their prayers at regular intervals. So yeah. Grades, that's not just an issue with the students, but also internally in the consortium. Because you got your grading system, I guess it's between 3 and 5, isn't it? In 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, etc. And below 3.0 is fail. But in EMQAL, we have A to F from the ECTS score. And we have a percentage score as well. Now we've got 4 different countries here, and we've got 4 different national systems. How do these compare? We have a table which translates one set of grades to the other. So in theory, we can handle this, but I guess there's still differences. I mean, in Norway, for instance, we tend to give, it's very rare that you see a student get less than a C for a master's. I don't know what it's like in Poland. Do you see a lot of 3.0 or 3.5s? Or do you give mostly 5 and 4.5 and 4? It's not so easy to have exams taking place in different countries with different cultures. And then, I mean, is an A in Spain the same as an A in Norway? Not necessarily. The very first edition of EMQAL, we had 5 students doing their exam in Cádiz in Spain. All 5 students got an A. Fine. Okay, maybe they were very good, but all 5 students got 100%. And that's silly, because there's no way that all of them were perfect. So having the same grading scale doesn't mean that it is used in the same way in the different countries. And that is something which we continually are working with. And then it's a problem that some of these are used to the A to F scale from before, but they are, for instance, more familiar with the American way of doing this. If you get a C in the United States, it's a very poor grade. That's not supposed to be so here in Europe. It's supposed to be a decent grade. So at least we need to inform them about how our grading system works, because this is bound to cause bad blood if we do not do that. And then they're finished and they go out into the big world seeking a job. Most of them want to do a PhD. Most of them do not get the offer to do a PhD. Around 40% do proceed with a PhD. They all want to do it, but around 40% get that offer. They ask for recommendation letters. They ask, many places require individual assessments. They've got their own forms to fill in. So it takes quite a lot of time for some of us to fill in all these letters. And this is also something that the students expect you to do. So I think this is something one needs to be aware of before one starts doing this. And then you got people who you do not really want to recommend. How do you break the news to a person that I don't really think you're cut out for a PhD? I don't think you have the mental capacity to do that. That's not an easy thing to say to someone. but I think it is sometimes necessary to say it to someone. So that's at least a personal challenge, I would say, when it comes to how to deal with that. I'm spending way too much time doing this, am I not? Talking now. When should I stop?
I'm not sure how many slides do you have, but we still have time. We are
Okay.
generally finishing those meetings around 3
I
p.m.
just have
so
some. I
don't
have some
worry.
results from what the student feedbacks and such. Just yeah. Okay, just stop me whenever
there will be
you.
Some questions because I'm following the chat and there are some questions. So at the end, just keep in mind that there will be some.
Yeah, fine. I have to catch the wine shop. It closes at 6 o'clock, so I have lots of time. Okay, feedback from students. Are they enjoying the program or not? We do surveys for each and every module. Every module is evaluated with the same questionnaire. And we summarize these. And the first year of classes is also surveyed with a special survey. And we have a special survey for the second year when they do the research project. And all of these results are compiled into what we refer to as an external examiner's report. We pay this person who has no ties to our universities or any of the persons involved to act as an external examiner. So he reads this report and he gives feedback on his report, and we have this big meeting in July where he attends and gives his feedback and comes with his recommendations. So I have some excerpts from the Bergen edition about these feedbacks. So a lot of pie graphs. First one, academic quality of the lecturers. It seems that most of us are very good with regards to our academical quality. Nobody is worse than okay of all the lecturers they encountered, which is around 30 people, yeah? There were 21 respondents out of 23 students, by the way, if you wonder how. So that's a very good response rate. It seems that our lecturers are slightly better academically than pedagogically because you see less blue and more red, and the green part has increased as well. So that's maybe something to think about in a didactic forum. How can we improve our pedagogical or didactical abilities? For the most part, they're quite happy. I mean, blue is the best, then it's the red. Green is okay, and if it's anything less than green, it's not so good. Most of them are quite happy with the way we design our program. Maybe they're not too happy with the balance between group works and lectures and other forms of studying. It must be said that this edition suffered a lot from the pandemic because during most of the year, there was a ban on physical classes. So a lot of the classes were online. Only towards the end of the year, it was possible to do physical classes. Yeah, I don't want to go into detail for each of these, but basically, as long as we see blue and red stuff, it's fine. Language training is, well, for the most part, well received. Integration activities. We did a lot of efforts here in Bergen, at least, to try to integrate the students. Language course was one thing, yeah, but we had lots of social gatherings, etc., which I think is very important, especially when you have a big group of students that you invite. You need to make them feel welcome. And they did work very well together as a group. That's not always the case. The edition after the Bergen edition was in Barcelona. And in Barcelona, it was a very different situation. In Barcelona, you had this one group of Spanish-speaking students and another group of Arab-speaking students, and there was very little interaction between them. And the Arab-speaking student did not feel integrated at all in the Spanish society. So it was a very different experience in Barcelona as to Bergen. So that is something we need to think about. We need to make sure that they feel accepted and welcome. Accommodation, I include this because this has been a core point in some of the complaints for some of the editions. Whenever the students are not offered housing from the university, there will be complaints. So this is from the Bergen edition. You see that a fair part of them have a private accommodation, but they were given an offer of a university accommodation. but they're all happy with the accommodation. If you were to look at this from the Barcelona session, you would see all of them were privately accommodated and none of them were happy. So housing, it's extremely important. I'm happy to say that our students here, for the most part at least, were integrated and accepted. I think there's 2 people here who didn't feel that. And they're quite happy with the level of the courses. Funnily enough, there's one person who thinks that this was too easy. I would understand if they felt that it was too difficult, but we had a student who felt that this year in Bergen, well, the classes were too easy. But still, everyone would like to recommend EMQAL for other students, which I'm very happy with. I have 3 slides left with some comments. I don't know if I will read them out loud, but first 2 comments here are some good things people wrote. Better develop my career, he says here. Opens the gates for international jobs. Has one person emphasizing friendship and network with colleagues from other parts of the world, which they seem as important. A lot of students write this in their feedback, and that to me is a sign that we are succeeding. I mean, we're pretty sure that we're able to teach them some good science, because that's our job, and we do that job well. But it is also very important that we make them feel happy about the experience. And to me, these feedbacks that we see here is an indication that we actually achieve that. Then I have some negative comments as well, not to hide them. Here's one person who complains about too many modules. Remember, they have 30 modules, 30 courses they need to do in 1 year. And this is a very common complaint. It becomes very hectic. You have maybe 2 modules in 1 week, and then you have 2 exams and assignments. So it's very, very intense in periods. And when modules are very new to some students, that is maybe a problem. If you look at the grades, it's fair to say that the data analysis modules are the ones that are regarded as more difficult by the students, because it's very new to some of the people. I mean, we had once a student from Iraq who, even on the exam in basic statistics, was unable to calculate the mean value. That is shocking in a way, but that's the reality. Some people come with extremely poor backgrounds in certain fields, whereas they may be very good in other fields. Here's someone who says that the language barrier made it difficult to integrate with the local culture. And this is in Norway. Everybody in Norway speaks English. I mean, you're taught English from the very first day at school. Everybody, regardless of status or level of education, speak English. But someone still felt it difficult to be integrated because they couldn't speak Norwegian. We shouldn't disregard the importance of the local language when it comes to integration. Here's someone who felt that discipline and time strictness are things that are very different from their national culture. That is definitely the case. There are people who are notoriously late always among our students, because they come from a group from countries or cultures where time is regarded totally differently from what we do here, especially here in the north, Norway and Poland. We had people who routinely showed up 30 minutes late for exams, because, well, that's the way they were used to. And then there's something about depression and negative effects on mental health. Far away from home, and you come to Norway, and in the winter it's very dark, and in the summer it's light all the time. That's not so easy either for some people. Climate of host country, yeah, that's a thing as well. We had this Mexican professor I talked about, 55 years of age. He was scheduled to go to Gdańsk to do his research thesis. We distribute the research thesis based on their rankings when they apply. So he got stuck with a project in Gdansk, and then he came with a doctor's note. The medical doctor who'd issued the note was, maybe by coincidence, I don't know, but he had the same surname as their Mexican student. And he said that because of his medical condition, he could not travel to a place with such a horrible climate as Gdansk. So we had no choice but to say that, okay, then you will have to go to Spain or Portugal instead, because he couldn't come to Poland. So climate can be important, yeah. And there's someone here saying at the end there, I fear that I won't be able to communicate properly. This was a question of, what were your fears before you arrived? Somebody feared that they wouldn't be able to communicate properly, but they were, but not now when they are in Spain. Again, because of language issues, English isn't as commonly spoken in Spain as it is in Norway. And then, I think this is my last slide. What is your impression of EMQAL? And here are 3 answers. Matches my field of work and it boosts my professional capabilities. I expect to be promoted, fine. And there's this large one in the middle there is quite nice, I think. If you read that, it's a very nice statement, seemingly indicating that this person is very happy with his or her experience. Conducted by people who are very well regarded in their fields, but most of all who care about the students under their care. And that's invaluable no matter what field one studies. I think those are quite nice words. And finally, I learned much more than I expected to, and I have to thank all the professors for being so passionate about the topics they are teaching and passing the passion further. Yeah, that's it. That was more than enough. Sorry for boring you for 1 hour and 15 minutes, but people from my town are notorious when it comes to talking. If you just give them a microphone, they won't stop.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wasn't bored at all. So if any one of you who is participating the speech would like to ask some questions, please raise your hand. But I would like to be the first one because yeah, I have this opportunity, so yeah. I will ask some questions.
Will you, before you ask the question, will you be the organizer of who gets to talk, or should I? I mean.
Yeah, I will be the organizer. Don't worry about that. The MS Teams is quite good for that, because even if people are raising hands, some numbers are appearing out there. So don't worry about that. We will manage. I will help you managing that. So I would like to share some insight, because I had the opportunity to participate in EMQAL project, and I also enjoyed visiting Southern Europe while we had November here, so the temperature was just so great out there. But I had that experience with all the EMQAL students I interacted with, that at the beginning this is quite challenging because of the cultural differences, as all of them are out there. But at the end of the course, at the end of the classes, generally, I feel this is very rewarding. I mean, managing to overcome those cultural differences and issues gives me personally a lot of fun to interact with those people. And now I know why so many students this year invited me on LinkedIn, because you just mentioned that they had classes regarding that. That was so cool. Now I know why that happened, and I was very happy with that. I didn't knew that this is like a skill, social skills to networking. I didn't knew that the EMQAL improves that. But I wanted to ask you, what was the most shocking thing regarding those master science exams. You said that those master exams are very different in Poland and in Norway.
Yeah.
What was the most shocking thing for you?
Shocking is a very strong word.
Yeah, but
okay.
surprising.
Yeah, surprising is maybe better. I would just say that it's different. I've been attending exams in Barcelona and Algarve and Faro as well. So it's not just Poland that is different. But well, I think the first time I came to Poland to do the exam, I'm used to getting the master's thesis a long time in advance, at least 2 weeks before. And here in Poland, I got the exam, the master thesis. I got them like the Friday, and I was supposed to leave on a Sunday and have exams on Mondays and Tuesdays. So it was very late. So okay, but I read it during the weekend. That was fine. And it was a lot of, I think it was 4 or 5 exams, and I was writing down lots of questions. And because the way we conduct an exam here in Norway is more like a mini version of a PhD defense. So there's lots of, it can last for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, no problem. So I had this whole bunch of questions lined up. And then I arrive in Poland and I'm told that I'm allowed to ask, I don't remember now if it was one, I think it was 1 question at that time. Now it's 3.
Up to 3.
Now you know
Yes,
you changed to 3, but I think it was 1 question. And I had these pages and pages of questions. You've heard me talking for hours now. So you can understand how I reacted to that, yeah? Okay, those are the rules, but I'm not going to play by them. So I started asking all the questions anyway. That was a big surprise, but by the next time I'd learned how to deal with it. So yeah, but that's a big difference, big difference when it comes to organizing the exams. And also that you had questions during the exam the first time that in theory you could ask a question that wasn't really related to the thesis as such. You could ask them anything and you just had to evaluate how well they answered.
Yeah, that's true. And as a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you are following the chat, but there are some questions around the chat. I'm not sure if people would like me to ask them or they would like to participate in the discussion. But some people are saying bravo for asking many questions. In my opinion, this is also quite good. You can evaluate people by asking many questions, by digging those. So yeah, this is also my opinion. One of the question from the chat was connected with visa. You mentioned that there will be some problems with those visa, but how did you handle those?
I think in a way I'm a bit lucky because Norwegian system seems to be more efficient than at least the Portuguese and Spanish. And then maybe Poland is somewhere in between there, because for the most part things go on track here in Norway. It is expensive to apply, but they usually, I mean, in all the years of EMQAL, we've only had 1 issue with a person who was very late to receive his residence permit. One thing is the visa, but then you need a residence permit as well. But we've never had any serious visa issues. I think I had to call an embassy once in Indonesia. And then it was just a personal mistake from a person and it was easy to rectify. Whereas I know that in Portugal and Spain, we've had lots of issues with visa situations. Okay, so especially for certain countries. Yeah, because it's handled by the embassies. So I think in the India, is it the Portuguese? Yeah, I think it's the Portuguese embassy in India deals with India and Bangladesh. I mean, if you add up the number of people in those 2 countries, it's quite a lot. So you got a potentially huge number of applicants to go to Portugal or Spain, and maybe they're not equipped to deal with a number of applicants. So the processing time is extremely slow or long. Same goes for Nigeria, which is also a huge country. So I think it has something to do with that. And I know that for the students coming to Poland, it was necessary for the local program director, Piotr Koniecka, to take an initiative to try to write to the embassies. And then it's it was okay.
Speeding up,
yeah. But they tried to do that in Barcelona. They even got the vice rector involved, and it didn't help. It just took forever. Whereas we have in Norway, as far as I know, we have this system where these international students are handled as a batch, more or less. They deal with them, let's say, in May or something like that. So if you apply out of season as a student, you would probably just be put in a drawer and then wait until the big student visa session is conducted. And then they take everything. So, yeah, but I think this is it's one of the common experiences across Europe that visa handling is very poorly organized. There should be some kind of pan-European thing for at least these EU-funded university educations. There should be some kind of visa for the Erasmus Mundus students. I don't know, something. And also when they have to go to the second country, the process starts over again. So you're in Portugal or you're in Spain, and then you have to go to Poland. Well, then you have to reapply the whole situation over and over again. It's a very, very tricky thing to do for the students, and it should be improved. But the thing is that it's nothing we can do about it. I mean, the European Commission is very well aware of that. I was in a meeting in France 2 years ago, and this was one of the things that was raised there, and the European Commission was present, and they're very well aware of this, but it needs to be raised to a much higher level than what we can do.
Okay, so I'm going to read other questions from the chat, since nobody is raising hand. Maybe people are shy. It happens from time to time. That's why I am here. Okay, so there was a question. You mentioned that you are not surprised with that US students are not coming here, but you were not surprised about that. We have we do not have many students from Europe. Why was that?
I am surprised that we don't have more students from Europe. I think I can try to explain it, but I'm not surprised by the US students not coming, because they have, I mean, why would they go to Europe to study? They have more than enough universities of high standard over there. So I think it will be very difficult for us to attract US students. But it is strange to me that we don't get more students from our European countries. It may be for Norwegian students, maybe because these classes of ours are not completely synchronized with classes here in Norway. We start the autumn term in August, mid-August. EMQAL starts in October. So we're kind of out of sync. I don't know. And maybe it's because we are not promoting the masters enough in our own countries. Maybe, I don't know. But I know that we are far from the only Erasmus Mundus program which have the same experience. Maybe it's also that European students have other opportunities.
Yeah, that's
whereas
true.
If you come from a less developed part of the world, maybe the opportunities isn't that big. You have to go to Europe if you want to do a certain kind of education. The fact that we actually offer a studentship, which may and we pay the tuition fees.
That's beneficial.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But we have one person who would like to ask some questions. So, Krzysztof, please. You raised your hand. So before I ask more questions, just feel free. Yeah. Hi.
All right.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, hello. Thank you very much. I have some questions. These visa issues. That we have very similar program here at the Warsaw University of Technology. So very, very similar to what you just presented, and we face 95% the same problems as you do. Yeah. So that's why I understand you very, very well. However, in our case, the visa issue is really hard point, a tough thing, because it disorganizes our courses. Yeah, so it's totally. Sometimes you can plan, the people apply, in advance, and then still they don't get the permission to come, the visa, and I think it's a more general regulation. I don't think it's a typical Polish issue, right? So I think it's a general European Union policy, or just to being checked, very thoroughly. And sometimes the procedures are so long that really, the people, even they pay, you grant the people, yeah. So you pay them for coming. We don't, yeah. So we. Instead of that, yeah, we can give them, of course, some social support if they really want. So we, from the last time, we had some problems because of the earthquake, for example, in Afghanistan, etc. So the people were somehow interested in getting some financial support, maybe, etc. But in general, they must pay, right? So ask for coming, and that's why. And despite of this thing, we have people who wanted to come, but really through this barrier, they cannot. And there are a lot of questions here on chat, so I don't want to take, to bother you too much and take, too much time, because there are other people, 20 or 22 people, here, so probably someone else would like to say something. But I think from the US, yeah, you are right. So that's probably the problem. From Europe, I think exactly what you said, at the end of your speech. It's, the problem of a promotion, because if I were a student and I had the possibility to go to Norway, or I don't know, to well-developed European country, recognized universities, top-ranked universities, I would, if I knew, of course, because I think the promotion, maybe I'm hearing it for a first time, right? And another question, maybe also, I don't know how it is, because I've never been to Norway. I've been to other Scandinavian countries, but I probably, Norway is very expensive. And my friends living there, they confirm that. And I can, make a bet, if the scholarship was a little bit, maybe, I don't know, higher, yeah, that could be different, yeah, because 1,000 euro, even living in Poland with 1,000 euro, it's tough sometimes. In Norway, when the prices are, I don't know, 4 times higher than here, well, that can be different. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that's maybe the problem. Okay,
I can
thank
say
you very
that
much.
when it comes to the cost of living in Norway, our EMQAL students get more money per month than a regular Norwegian student do. I mean, the regular Norwegian student gets some money from the government, but they get student loans. But it's not an unlimited amount. If you look at the amount they get per month, the scholarship plus the student loan, it's less than what the EMQAL students get. Now, that being said, most Norwegian students have a job next to their studies, but so can our EMQAL students. This is different from other countries. I think in Barcelona, they're technically not allowed to do a job. But here in Norway, they can do 20 hours of paid work per week alongside their studies. And a lot of people who've been to Bergen are doing that, where they're typically working in bars and restaurants or hotels and stuff like that. We even had one guy, he was actually a Portuguese student, but he started working at a Brazilian restaurant. And 2 months later, he was the general manager of the restaurant. So, yeah. Okay, thanks for your comments and questions.
Okay, so there is another tricky question because someone asked if you can bring us some PDF copy of your presentation, because
I
some
see
people...
that's Maria Yorina. So we have
Yes, I
students
know.
here as well. I see from the list of names that we have lots of students here. Huh?
That's
Yeah,
true.
well, hi to you. Yeah.
Okay, so can we manage that?
Yeah, I can
people
send
who are
you. I can
interested
send
in
you.
that
I
will
can
contact with you. That would probably
I
the
could
simplest way.
Yeah, or I could send it to you. Whatever. I mean, yeah. Sure. Do you want me to send it to you, or do you want me to answer? I mean, I don't know if all these people have my email. The students have, I know, but
I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but at our website, Didactic Fridays, we added your university site, and out there is the email for you. So if someone would like to contact you, he will be the people will be able to.
I'll send it to anyone who wants to have it. Okay. No problem there.
I cannot see that anyone is raising a hand, so feel free if you have any other questions, but I have another question regarding your presentation, because I saw at the end of the presentation that like more than 80% of students were happy with the program. And you mentioned that you managed to organize many social events. Even I had the opportunity to participate in at least 2 of those. Yeah, the pizza and the and the meeting in the evening. Yeah, that was very cool. And can you share some
the
other
meeting
thoughts?
at which I contracted COVID, by the way.
Oh, really? That was the day. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to ask, because this information might be interesting for some people. How did you manage those? How did you integrate people during such meetings? What kind of meetings were that? That might be interesting for many of us.
Yeah. For the most part, those meetings involve food and drink, I think. Yeah. I mean, up here in Bergen, activities tend to take place indoors. So yeah, so we've had some welcome meetings, and we had some summer meetings, and you attended the Christmas party where I mean, the funding from the EU is quite generous, so there is money available to doing things like that. Depends a little bit on the university, how greedy the university is. I mean, do you get to spend all the money yourself, or do they take away a lot of the money? And I think Bergen and Poland are quite, or Bergen and Gdańsk are quite similar in that respect, that we get to keep the money. So there is money for doing things like that. So basically, food, drink, yeah.
So the simplest ones. Okay, we have another question.
Maybe we should be more creative, but yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that the food might be a challenge because of some cultural differences. You always have to think about it.
Yeah, you have to think about it. But I mean, for instance, for the I always sent out questions about, where do you prefer meat? Do you prefer fish? Do you prefer vegetarian? Are there any allergies? Are there any religious or cultural constraints I should be aware of? And we've always managed to cater for that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. But we have another question. So Krzysztof, feel free to ask or comment.
It's me again. Yeah, just one comment. Probably Bergen is one of the most raining cities, and I had it from my friends living in Norway. So probably, but you know, it's very similar to. I think there is a huge difference between Bergen and this region of Norway and Poland. And my question goes to your. That was me who said bravo for this defenses. Yeah, that was regarding that, right? And what's your experience? But probably not very well because of that, right? Because we had some problems with defenses, with master defenses here in during our studies for so English speaking studies, because of the quality. How should I say? How should I say it? How to make it smoothly, right? Present it smoothly. They were not necessarily very well prepared, right? And also the presentations, etc. So we had to really make a big effort, and put all our forces to adjust it a little bit, to the standards. But what you have presented, right, and said about the defenses and your experiences with our Polish university, right? That's amazing, right? Because I was facing the same when I was visiting Sapienza University in Rome. They had always, they invited me also for these defenses, bachelor or master defenses, and they were very, very high level presentations and then discussion, and it lasted always also like you said, maybe 1 hour, maybe no more than 1 hour, but at least it was like 45 minutes per person, and you had the feeling it was really something, right? And also for these people who defended, I think they have feeling that they were not giving something for just because of that. Yes, very easily. And could you please say, maybe in just a few words, how you organize or how the whole process of the defense, master or bachelor, do you have it's organized at your university? Do you have maybe presentations obligatory and then discussion, or what about preparing the thesis? Do you have some guidelines, or maybe you have some materials you can share with us, please? Yeah, that would be very, very helpful. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Is your question now about how we do things with our regular students, or how we do things in EMQAL with the?
Yeah. Okay. And you probably have different, right, experiences.
Yeah, they're slightly different, but we try to do the master's exams in EMQAL as similar to the normal procedure at the university as possible.
And which language you prefer, in Norwegian or in English for your regular students?
For regular students, okay. For regular students, we have a fixed deadline. The students need to submit their thesis by June 1st or December 1st, unless they have some kind of reason to submit later because they've been sick or whatever. So they submit their thesis, and we have at our department a team of professors who act as internal members of the exam commission. So there are like 4 people in that group, and every exam has one of these 4 guys or women being part of the commission. And then we have an external member as well, which is from outside the university, usually somebody in Norway who is skilled in that particular field. And this can be a person from anywhere in Norway. The university, my department, would pay transportation and hotel for that person. If I want to get somebody from Oslo, for instance, that's not a problem. They pay the airplane and the hotel. So then comes the exam. It starts with a 30-minute presentation by the student. That is a public presentation, so it's open to the general public. Usually there's a few other students there, maybe some members of the family. And then once that session is finished, we do a round of questions from the audience, if there are any questions. And then the remainder of the session is closed to the general public. So that means everybody has to leave except for the student and the supervisor and the internal and external member of the commission. And then there is a round of questions. Usually one of the commission members starts and then the second takes over. And it's a discussion back and forth, much like you would see at a PhD defense. So it's not an exam. It's not. We're not asking questions to see if you really understood the principles of vibrational spectroscopy, for instance. We're asking, why did you do it like this? And can you tell me what? Yeah, so it's more like a scientific discussion, and the student is having their thesis there to look at, and yeah. So that is, yeah. But before the actual exam, there is a form which the commission is expected to fill in with certain questions regarding the composition of the thesis, regarding the independence of the student, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things that are evaluated. Some are evaluated by the commission members, some are evaluated by the supervisor. And then it's all added up, and then you get an approximate grade. Which is then adjusted after the exam. That's how we do things for a regular master's exam. When it comes to the EMQAL thing, it's pretty similar, but we don't usually do this filling in of this form in advance. But there is one external member. Then now it's not in EMQAL. It's not an external member from the industries or other universities in Norway. It's a member of the EMQAL team. So like for someone from Gdańsk or someone from Barcelona or Faro or Cadiz attending. Sometimes they attend in person, sometimes they attend by video conference. So yeah, that depends on how eager the person from abroad is with regards to traveling.
And the language for regular students is Norwegian or English?
Regular students, it's in Norwegian. Okay. When it comes to the thesis writing, I guess it's a 50-50. Around half of them write in Norwegian, around half of them write in English. I think we see more and more people writing in English these days. I don't know. I think they feel that is more, I don't know. It's more worthy to have it in English than in Norwegian.
And the lecture.
Sorry, and the lecture is that's usually in Norwegian, because I mean most of the audience is Norwegians. So yeah. So it's kind of strange if you have a room full of Norwegians and then the student starts talking in English. That's kind of a strange situation. Yeah. And we try to do the exams with the EMQAL students just the same. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're aware, Bjørn, but there are some warm words regarding EMQAL project on the chat. If you can,
okay.
if you can look at those, some of our students make those statements. But earlier in your speech, you mentioned that in most cases, most students finish their Master of Science and thesis with grades around C. And as a matter of fact, at least at the Gdańsk University of Technology, it is also quite similar. Most students finish their thesis with marks above 3.5. So this is quite similar. And I also had this experience that you mentioned, that some students gave me very, very good work, nice thesis, and I think, okay, it's quite good. I think it's B. And they were, oh no, it's bad. No, it's not bad. B is really, really good in my opinion. I'm not sure. Yeah. So you also think like this. So this is also this difference with this American B and European B.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to do with communication. I mean, how can the students know about this if we don't tell it to them?
That's true. That's true. So, communication is probably, you also, regarding communication, you also mentioned about the plagiarism. And for example, in Poland, the plagiarism might be a serious problem, because you can go to jail even for 3 years because of the plagiarism. People do not know that, because from where? They should be aware of that. But probably this is our job. By our, I mean the teachers, to tell people, hey, you can go to jail. In most cases, this is not jail. This is like a community works or a fee, which might be quite high, as a matter of fact. But still, people do not know that because they are not familiar with our law. Yeah, in Europe, in Norway, in Poland, in Spain, and stuff and so on.
Like a month ago, the Minister of Higher Education in Norway resigned because it was discovered that there were 112 cases of plagiarism in her master's thesis. And she was the Minister of Higher Education.
Oh. Oh.
And then some newspapers started to dig deeper. And now we have a second Norwegian minister who has been, well, she's being investigated for plagiarism. It's without a doubt that there is plagiarism. The question is, what will happen? Will she hasn't resigned, but yeah.
Yeah, this is a serious problem. We also had such situations here in Poland, but I'm not sure if we should speak about it. But the biggest problem is that we have 3 p.m. now. So since nobody else is asking more questions, I have a feeling that we should slowly go to an end. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the speak. And I'm probably people do not know that, but we were talking about a different subject with you. So if you would be so kind and consider our invitation somewhere in the future, probably in next semester, we would be very pleased to have you again. So
I could, if you want to, I could do, and we're doing some stuff that's more didactics. I mean, this was more a story about EMQAL, but
yes, that's true.
We are doing some stuff now with our, I'm teaching general chemistry here at the department, the biggest course that we have. And it's also a lab course. And we're doing some stuff with the laboratory course now. So we are doing some stuff with like a video, like an interactive lab room. To assist the students in preparing to the lab, because they come ill prepared and they are not able to write proper reports afterwards. So we're doing some stuff both with regards to some kind of interactive lab activities which we develop ourselves, and also something about cooperative learning when it comes to preparations and reporting the outcomes of the lab. So we're doing 2 fairly big projects now on this. So if that would be of interest, I don't know.
Yeah, that probably might be very interesting. So please consider that as a long-term invitation.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bjørn, for your time and for your speech. That was very nice. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. You were not able to follow what was happening on the chat, but
no, I didn't watch the chat at all.
Living. So. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at it now. I'm just seeing that somebody mentions Duolingo. Are we kidding? Actually, Duolingo they have this Duolingo test. If you Google it, you can. It's more than just doing some stuff on your cell phone. They have you have to pay for it, but it's much cheaper than the others, and they are doing some kind of camera assisted things to make sure that you're not cheating. So it's not as serious as the TOEFL or the IELTS, but it's not as stupid as it seems. It's worth looking into. I'm not saying that it's very good, but it's better than nothing, I think. It's not like using your cell phone and doing Duolingo tests there. It's more than that.
Yeah, especially when you have the situation when you have 397 people to evaluate. Yeah, such things, such tools are helpful probably in such situation.
Okay. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Anyone who wants a copy of my slides can just send me an email and I'll send it to you. Okay.
Okay. I will add your. Do you feel okay with adding an email here on the chat, because probably people who are looking for it are here on the chat. So I will.
I'll do it right away.
Okay. Thank you very much. So people may contact you if they have a need of that. Okay, so thank you very much again. That was an honor to guest you, and probably see you in the next semester.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and
Bye-bye.
see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you. Bye.